Rome does not wake suddenly. It begins with movement before sound. A baker opens the wooden shutters of his shop and sets a basket of bread outside, the warmth drifting into the narrow street. A cart rolls slowly over stone, its wheels finding the same grooves carved by centuries of use. Water spills gently from a public fountain as the first hands of the day cup it for washing. You move through the city as it forms around you. A woman sweeps dust from her doorway, pushing yesterday aside without ceremony. A messenger adjusts his sandals and checks the strap of his satchel before setting off toward the forum. Somewhere above, in an apartment stacked over many others, a window opens and cloth is shaken out into the morning air. Rome does not wait for silence. It builds sound layer by layer. Metal strikes stone as a shopkeeper unlocks his door. A vendor arranges fruit on a wooden table, testing each piece before placing it where others will touch it. A slave carries jars from one house to another, careful not to spill, careful not to stop. The streets grow narrower as you pass between buildings that lean toward one another, their upper floors nearly touching. Voices echo here, bouncing from wall to wall, blending into something that feels constant rather than loud. This is not a city preparing for something special. This is Rome being itself. By the time the sun clears the rooftops, the forum is already alive. Merchants arrive first, claiming space with habit rather than argument. Tables are unfolded. Scales are tested. Coins pass from hand to hand with familiar weight. A senator crosses the square, his path clearing without request. Not because he demands it, but because everyone recognizes the shape of authority when they see it. Nearby, two men argue over the price of olive oil, their disagreement sharp but controlled. Business continues around them without pause. Rome holds all of this at once. Power and routine. Noise and precision. Order and improvisation. As you move deeper into the city, you begin to understand something important. Rome is not defined by its buildings or its rulers, but by the continuous motion of people doing what must be done. And this motion will not stop. It will carry you through markets and bathhouses, through training yards and arenas, through laughter and discipline, through the ordinary and the extraordinary, all woven together into a single, endless rhythm. This is Rome. And the day has only begun. The forum where everything passes. The forum Romanum does not belong to a single group. It belongs to movement. From the moment the first merchants arrive, the space begins to reshape itself. Wooden tables unfold. Cloth is spread. Scales are placed down and tested with practiced taps. Nothing here is decorative. Everything serves a purpose. You move through the crowd as transactions begin to overlap. A farmer presents olives still dusted with soil. A trader from farther south lays out amphorae marked with painted symbols, each sign promising oil, wine, or garum. Coins change hands quickly, weighed by habit rather than doubt. Nearby, a money changer sits behind a low bench. He does not advertise. People find him because they need him. Foreign coins are inspected, bit lightly, struck against stone to hear their sound. Exchange rates are argued, adjusted, and agreed upon. The city's economy breathes here, quietly but constantly. At the edge of the forum, a group gathers around a raised platform. A magistrate arrives, not announced, but recognized. A clerk unrolls a scroll. Legal matters begin immediately. Disputes over land boundaries, unpaid debts, inheritance questions, all addressed in public, not for drama, but for efficiency. Rome does not hide its processes. Messengers weave through the crowd, carrying updates from other parts of the city. News travels on foot here, spoken aloud and passed forward. A fire in one district. A shipment delayed at the port. A public holiday announced for the following week. The forum absorbs it all. You notice how different worlds intersect without stopping one another. Politics happens beside commerce. Gossip flows next to law. Religion stands close by, waiting its turn. Nothing dominates completely. As the sun rises higher, the forum grows louder but not chaotic. There is a rhythm to the noise, calls, responses, negotiations beginning and ending. People come and go without ceremony. No one stands still long enough to be noticed. Rome is not a city of pauses. It is a city of crossings. And in the forum, everything crosses everything else. Streets that never belong to one person. Leaving the forum, the city tightens around you again. Streets narrow. Buildings rise higher. Upper floors stretch outward, casting long shadows across the stone below. These streets are not planned for beauty. They are shaped by need, layered over generations. A delivery cart moves carefully through the crowd, its driver calling out just loudly enough to be heard. People step aside instinctively. No one argues. Everyone understands momentum here. A stopped cart blocks life itself. At ground level, shops open directly onto the street. A metalworker hammers heated iron into shape, sparks flashing briefly before disappearing. Next door, a cloth seller shakes out dyed fabric, inspecting it in the light. Colors matter. Reputation matters. Water carriers pass with balanced loads, moving steadily from fountain to insula, from insula to market. Their pace never changes. Time is measured in trips, not hours. Children run between legs, chased back by sharp voices that soften immediately once danger passes. A teacher gathers students near a shaded wall, scratching letters into wax tablets, correcting posture, repeating sounds until they settle into memory. Above it all, life continues unseen. Families eat behind shuttered windows. Someone laughs. Someone argues. Someone sleeps after a night shift guarding a warehouse. The streets are not background. They are the mechanism. Every sound, every step, every exchange pushes the city forward. Rome does not depend on grand monuments to function. It depends on these narrow paths and the people who know how to move through them without stopping. As you pass deeper into the city, you realize something quietly powerful. No single person controls this flow. It exists because everyone participates. The streets do not wait. They carry you onward. The baths where the city pauses without stopping. The entrance to the public baths is wide, designed to receive many at once. Inside, sound changes immediately. Voices echo. Footsteps soften. The air grows warm and heavy with steam. Men arrive from all parts of the city. Some come to clean. Some to socialize. Some to do business away from formal spaces. Clothing is removed and stored. Differences blur quickly here. Status matters less when everyone sweats the same way. Attendants move constantly, offering towels, oil, scrapers. Water flows through channels built with care, heated far below by fires tended all day. Nothing here is accidental. The baths are engineering as much as culture. Groups settle into conversation along the edges of the pools. News from the forum is repeated, adjusted, debated. A merchant discusses a shipment. A soldier speaks of training. A politician listens without appearing to. You move from warm water to hotter rooms, then back again. The body relaxes, but the mind stays alert. Deals are suggested. Meetings are arranged. The city conducts itself even here. In the palestra outside, younger men practice controlled movement. Not fighting, training. Balance, endurance, discipline. These skills belong to citizens as much as soldiers. Strength is expected. Control is respected. As you leave the baths, skin warm and senses sharpened, Rome feels different. Not slower, clearer. The city has paused just enough to continue. Food that keeps the city moving. Food in Rome is not an event. It is a system. Along the streets branching from the Forum, vendors work with practiced speed. A man turns skewers over a small charcoal fire, rotating them evenly so nothing burns. Another ladles thick porridge into clay bowls, handing them off without looking up. Coins are placed on the table and taken without pause. You move past bakeries where long loaves are stacked against the walls, their crusts cracked and darkened from early ovens. Bread is sold by weight and familiarity. Regulars are served first, not out of kindness, but efficiency. Wine is poured everywhere, diluted with water as custom demands. Amphorae stand open, marked with simple signs scratched into clay. Someone tastes before buying. Someone argues about quality. Someone buys anyway. Behind the stalls, kitchens work continuously. Slaves grind grain. Oil is heated carefully. Herbs are measured by memory, not scale. Nothing is wasted. Food feeds labor, and labor feeds Rome. At midday, movement intensifies. Workers stop briefly, not to rest, but to refuel. Bowls are eaten standing. Conversations remain short. The city does not slow for meals. It passes through them. Even the wealthy eat differently than expected. Large banquets exist, but daily food is practical. Fresh fruit. Cheese. Bread dipped in oil. Rome values endurance over indulgence. As you pass through these streets, you realize food here is not comfort. It is momentum. Inside the Roman home. Not all Roman homes look the same, but all of them function with purpose. You enter a domus through a narrow doorway that opens suddenly into space. An atrium spreads out before you, light falling from an opening above. Water collects in a shallow basin at the center, reflecting walls painted with careful scenes, gardens, columns, imagined landscapes. Slaves move quietly here. One sweeps. Another carries a tray. Another listens for instruction that does not need to be spoken aloud. The household runs on anticipation. Beyond the atrium, rooms open one by one. A dining area prepared for evening. A study where scrolls are stacked and reorganized. A small shrine where offerings are refreshed daily, not out of devotion alone, but habit. Across the city, life unfolds differently in the insulae. Tall apartment buildings packed with families. Narrow staircases. Shared walls. Cooking done close to windows to let smoke escape. Water carried upward by hand. Here, life is louder. Children cry. Pots clatter. Neighbors argue through thin walls. Privacy is rare, but community is unavoidable. In both places, the day continues. Repairs are made. Meals prepared. People rest briefly before returning to the street. Rome lives as much inside its homes as outside them. Learning the shape of the world. Education in Rome begins early and rarely stops. In a shaded corner near the street, a teacher gathers children around a low bench. Wax tablets are distributed. Styluses scratch lines again and again until letters form correctly. Mistakes are erased and repeated. Discipline is quiet but firm. Nearby, older boys practice public speaking. One stands forward, reciting lines memorized the night before. The others listen, not kindly, but critically. Words matter in Rome. How you speak shapes how you live. At home, girls learn different lessons. Household management. Reading when possible. Music. Accounting. Knowledge is practical, directed toward function rather than theory. Across the city, apprentices learn by doing. A young metalworker repeats the same motion until muscle replaces thought. A future merchant learns weights and measures before profit. Rome educates through repetition, not inspiration. Skill is valued over brilliance. Reliability over creativity. By the time adulthood arrives, most citizens know exactly what is expected of them. And that knowledge keeps the city moving. Training bodies for a demanding city. Rome expects strength, but it values control. In training yards across the city, men practice movement rather than combat. Wooden weapons are lifted, swung, corrected. Balance is tested. Endurance built slowly. This is not spectacle. It is preparation. Soldiers train differently, but citizens also understand the importance of readiness. Carrying loads. Standing for long periods. Moving efficiently through crowds. These are daily demands. In the background, you hear the distant sound of iron striking iron, not battle, but practice. A rhythm develops. Lift. Step. Reset. Even leisure requires strength here. The city is heavy. Stone, crowd, responsibility. Training is simply another form of participation. Where Rome gathers to be entertained. Entertainment in Rome does not wait for free time. It inserts itself directly into the rhythm of the city. As you move toward the theater district, the streets change character. Vendors cluster more tightly. Voices rise in anticipation rather than urgency. People are not rushing to work here, they are moving toward distraction. The theater itself stands open, already filling long before any performance begins. Stone seating curves outward, designed to hold thousands without effort. Attendants guide people to their places, not by kindness, but by experience. Every section has a function. Every seat a purpose. Actors prepare behind the scenes. Costumes are adjusted. Masks are checked for fit and visibility. Nothing is improvised. Roman theater depends on repetition, on gestures refined through countless performances. A raised arm, a turned head, a measured pause, these are tools, not expressions. As the performance begins, the audience settles into attentive movement. People lean forward. They respond audibly. Laughter travels quickly here, spreading in waves. When a familiar story unfolds, recognition matters more than surprise. Rome enjoys knowing what comes next. Between scenes, vendors pass through the aisles offering snacks and watered wine. Conversations continue. Commentary flows freely. The theater is not sacred space. It is shared space. Beyond the stage, acrobats practice in open courtyards. Musicians rehearse melodies that will echo later through streets and homes. Entertainment leaks outward, blending into the city rather than remaining contained. By the time you leave the theater, the performance does not end. It follows you, repeated in conversation, exaggerated in memory, reshaped by opinion. Rome carries its stories forward collectively. Entertainment here is not escape. It is reinforcement. It reminds the city who it is and how it moves together. The long path toward the arena. The Colosseum does not dominate Rome by accident. It rises gradually as you approach it, visible from multiple streets, always present but never intrusive. People move toward it naturally, as if drawn by habit rather than curiosity. Today is not chaos. It is organization. Crowds gather in controlled flow. Entry points are managed by guards who direct movement without force. Tickets, small marked tokens, are checked and exchanged. Seating assignments are clear. Confusion slows the spectacle, and Rome does not tolerate delay. Inside, the space opens dramatically. The arena floor rests below, silent for now, carefully prepared. Sand is spread evenly, raked smooth. Underneath, mechanisms are tested. Lifts are checked. Doors open and close once, then again, ensuring nothing sticks. Above, spectators settle in. Vendors circulate. Conversations rise and fall. Some people come often. Others arrive rarely. All understand the rules of the space. Attention is expected when events begin. Far from the noise, in a different part of the city, the gladiator oculari remain active. In the training yard of a ludus, movement continues as it always does. Gladiators rehearse combinations slowly, deliberately. Wooden weapons strike against shields, corrected immediately when posture slips. Armor is fitted carefully. Helmets are tested for balance and vision. Each piece is functional, familiar, worn daily. This is not costume. It is equipment. The lanista watches closely, not for aggression, but precision. A fighter who wastes movement wastes breath. A fighter who loses control risks everything. Food is prepared simply. Training continues. Rest is scheduled. Nothing here is dramatic. Everything is measured. When the time comes, fighters are assembled and guided toward the arena. Not marched. Not celebrated. Escorted. They walk steadily, focused, prepared. The crowd waits. And Rome holds its breath, not for blood, but for performance, discipline, and tradition repeated once more. Why the arena exists. The arena does not begin with combat. It begins with order. Long before the first gladiator steps onto the sand, the space is already doing its work. Guards take their positions. Attendants move along the corridors, checking gates, confirming signals. The mechanisms beneath the floor are tested once more, not for spectacle, but for reliability. Rome values what functions. As the audience settles, the mood becomes focused rather than excited. People know what this place is for. The arena is not chaos released. It is chaos contained, shaped, and displayed under rules everyone understands. The events held here serve many purposes at once. They honor tradition, remind citizens of discipline, and demonstrate control of bodies, of outcomes, of public attention. In a city as large as Rome, unity matters. Shared experiences hold people together more effectively than laws alone. When gladiators enter the arena, they do so deliberately. They walk, not run. Each carries equipment suited to his role. These roles are known to the crowd. The murmurs rise not from fear, but from recognition. People understand what they are watching. Gladiators are not sent here to die without meaning. They are trained performers, bound by contracts, obligations, and expectations. Their skill lies not only in strength, but in timing, balance, and restraint. A fight that ends too quickly disappoints. A fight that shows control earns respect. The purpose is demonstration. Rome watches how a person moves under pressure. How he follows structure. How he responds when advantage shifts. These lessons matter to a society built on hierarchy and duty. Victory does not always mean death for the opponent. Many matches end when one fighter yields, acknowledging skill rather than destruction. The decision then passes to authority, the editor of the games, the officials, and ultimately the crowd's response. A victorious gladiator is not simply released. He is examined. His condition is assessed. He is escorted away from the arena, given water, treated for injury. His performance is recorded. Good fighters are valuable. They represent investment, reputation, and continuity. Some receive prizes. Coins. Garlands. Public recognition. Their names circulate through the city, spoken in taverns and markets. Children imitate their movements. Artists paint their likenesses on walls. A few, after many victories, earn something rarer, freedom. A wooden sword presented ceremonially marks the end of obligation. These men do not disappear. Some become trainers. Some manage schools. Some remain public figures long after they leave the sand. The arena does not exist to glorify death. It exists to stage control. And in that staging, Rome reminds itself what it believes strength should look like: disciplined, visible, and contained within rules that never break. After the sand is smoothed again. When the arena empties, the work does not stop. It simply changes direction. Below the stands, away from the noise, corridors fill with controlled movement. Attendants guide gladiators toward the medical rooms, not hurried, not slow. Each fighter is handled according to condition. Some walk on their own. Some lean lightly on a shoulder. None are left unattended. Inside the treatment rooms, routine takes over. Armor is removed carefully. Sand is brushed away. Wounds are cleaned immediately, even the smallest ones. Gladiators are valuable not because they fight, but because they can fight again. Preservation matters more than display now. Physicians work without ceremony. They apply poultices, bind muscles, check joints for strain. Herbs are measured. Water is given in controlled amounts. Rest is scheduled, not optional. Recovery follows structure just like training did. Food arrives soon after. High-energy meals prepared specifically for rebuilding strength. Barley porridge thickened with oil. Dried fruits. Bread softened in broth. These meals are not indulgent. They are functional. The body is treated as equipment that must be maintained. Meanwhile, records are updated. Victories are marked. Performances are evaluated. A gladiator who showed discipline but lacked speed is noted differently than one who relied too much on force. These observations shape future matches, future pairings, future training. Once cleared, fighters return to their quarters. The mood here is calm. Some rest immediately. Others stretch slowly, testing their bodies. Conversation is minimal but present. Advice is exchanged quietly. Mistakes are discussed without blame. After the sand is smoothed again. When the arena empties, the work does not stop. It simply changes direction. Outside the ludus, life continues. People leave the arena talking, arguing, remembering. The spectacle dissolves into the city, becoming story rather than event. Inside, preparation resumes. The arena may be silent now, but the system that supports it never rests. Gladiators do not live between battles. They live through routine. How the city carries its fighters. By the time evening settles, the arena is empty, but its presence remains everywhere. In taverns near the Colosseum, conversations return to the matches. Not shouting, not reenacting, recounting. Movements are described. Decisions debated. Outcomes judged. A gladiator's name is spoken casually at first, then repeated. Someone sketches a helmet shape into the dust with a finger. Another recalls a moment when balance shifted. These discussions move outward, from table to table, from street to street. Merchants benefit quickly. Small charms bearing symbols of famous fighters are sold openly. Wall paintings appear overnight, simple outlines scratched into plaster. Children imitate training stances in alleyways, correcting one another with surprising seriousness. But admiration does not erase reality. Most people understand that gladiators are part of a structure larger than themselves. They represent discipline, endurance, and visibility. Their fame is real, but controlled. Some fighters walk the city freely between events, accompanied quietly, not guarded. They are recognized but not mobbed. Rome respects boundaries. Too much attention disrupts order. In contrast, others remain inside the ludus, training continuing without interruption. Success does not grant rest. It increases expectation. The city absorbs its fighters the same way it absorbs everything else, by distributing meaning across many layers. What happens in the arena becomes conversation, symbol, memory, and example. By nightfall, the streets glow softly with oil lamps. Vendors close stalls. Theaters empty. The baths release their final visitors. Rome slows, but does not sleep. Somewhere inside the city, a gladiator eats quietly, stretching muscles that will be needed again. Somewhere else, a child dreams of standing in the arena, not for violence, but for recognition. The arena has finished its work for the day. But its influence continues, woven into Rome's endless motion. When the city softens its voice. As the sun lowers, Rome does not shut itself down. It changes tone. Shadows lengthen along the streets, stretching from columns and doorways, touching the feet of people who continue moving without pause. Vendors begin to pack away what will not last the night. Wooden shutters are pulled halfway closed, then adjusted again to let the last light in. Oil lamps are tested, wicks trimmed, flames coaxed into steady glow. The streets remain active, but the pace shifts. Carts move less frequently. Foot traffic becomes more deliberate. Conversations slow enough to be heard fully rather than shouted across space. The city exhales without stopping. Near the forum, groups gather briefly to settle unfinished business. A merchant closes his ledger, counting coins one final time. A clerk reviews notes taken earlier in the day, committing them to memory before the light fades. Agreements are confirmed, not renegotiated. Tomorrow will bring new matters. Along residential streets, families return indoors. Meals are prepared with what remains from the day, bread broken rather than cut, olives passed hand to hand, bowls shared. The sound of cooking drifts through open windows, mixing with voices from neighboring homes. In the insulae, stairways echo as people climb upward, careful on worn steps. Doors close, then open again as someone realizes they forgot something. Laughter carries briefly, then fades. Life compresses inward. On the main roads, watchmen take their positions. Not because danger increases, but because order must remain visible. Lamps are lit at regular intervals, creating lines of light that guide movement. Rome does not allow darkness to interrupt function. As night deepens, the city's sounds soften further. Metal no longer strikes stone. Voices lower. Footsteps space themselves out. The arena stands silent now, its vast interior holding the memory of noise without producing any of its own. You move through this changing Rome without hurry. The city does not demand speed from you now. It allows observation. What becomes clear is not rest, but continuity. Even in its quieter hours, Rome remains coordinated. Nothing feels abandoned. Nothing feels unfinished. The city has not gone to sleep. It has simply learned how to speak more softly. The gods in everyday motion. Religion in Rome does not interrupt daily life. It runs alongside it. As evening settles, small acts of devotion begin to appear throughout the city. A woman pauses briefly at a household shrine, placing a simple offering before moving on to prepare dinner. A merchant touches a carved figure near his doorway before closing his shop. These gestures are quick, practiced, and personal. In public spaces, temples remain open. Not crowded, not empty. A steady flow of people enters and exits without ceremony. Incense burns softly. Priests move calmly, adjusting offerings, maintaining order. Ritual here is maintenance, not spectacle. You step into one of these spaces and notice the difference immediately. Sound changes. The city's echo softens. Stone absorbs noise. Movements become smaller, slower. People lower their voices instinctively, not from fear, but from habit. Offerings vary. Food. Coins. Objects with meaning known only to the person placing them. No one watches closely. Devotion in Rome does not require witnesses. Outside, the city continues. A group passes by laughing. A cart rolls slowly over stone. The temple does not isolate itself. It coexists. Later, as darkness deepens, lamps inside temples glow more brightly. Shadows move along walls painted with scenes of gods and heroes. These images are not distant myths. They are familiar references woven into daily thinking. Belief here is practical. Gods are approached for protection, guidance, success, continuity. They are not expected to disrupt the city's order, but to support it. As night settles fully, temples begin to close. Offerings are recorded. Fires are banked. Doors are secured carefully. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is dramatic. Rome's relationship with its gods mirrors its relationship with itself, structured, continuous, and deeply integrated into routine. The city does not pause to worship. It worships while moving. How Rome measures time without stopping. Rome does not count time the way you might expect. There are hours, yes, and shadows that move across stone, but the city does not organize itself around clocks. It moves by rhythm, by repetition, by the quiet agreement of millions of small actions happening in the same order day after day. Morning belongs to trade and preparation. Midday to exchange and decision. Evening to settlement and return. Night to maintenance and protection. These divisions are not announced. They are understood. You see this most clearly as night deepens. Lamps burn lower. Streets thin, but do not empty. The city shifts tasks rather than ending them. What could not be done earlier is now handled in quieter conditions. Watchmen take steady routes, following paths memorized over years. Their presence is not threatening. It is familiar. A nod here. A pause there. A brief exchange of words with someone still awake. Order continues without force. In bakeries, ovens glow again. Bread for the next day begins now, not in the morning. Dough is mixed, shaped, set aside to rise. The work is slow and repetitive, perfect for hours when the city listens rather than speaks. In workshops, tools move softly. Repairs that would disrupt the day are done at night. A cracked handle is replaced. A hinge tightened. A cartwheel adjusted. These actions leave no trace by morning, but they make the morning possible. Time in Rome is layered. One group rests while another works. One space grows quiet while another wakes. There is no single moment when everything stops. You walk through these overlapping hours and realize that night is not absence. It is redistribution. The city does not need to sleep all at once. It needs to continue. Those who work while others rest. As most homes grow quiet, a different Rome becomes visible. This is the city maintained in silence. At the city's edges, near warehouses and roads leading outward, labor continues steadily. Porters move crates under torchlight, stacking goods that arrived late, preparing them for distribution at dawn. Nothing is rushed. Accuracy matters more than speed now. Near the river, boats arrive quietly, guided by experience rather than signal. Goods are unloaded with minimal noise. Ropes are loosened slowly. Wood does not strike wood. The river accepts these movements without comment. In residential districts, caretakers move through shared spaces, sweeping stairways, clearing debris, removing waste before morning brings crowds again. Their work leaves no mark beyond cleanliness. It is noticed only when absent. Guards patrol bridges and gates, checking seals, confirming that nothing has shifted. They listen more than they look. Sound carries farther at night. A misplaced step can be identified from a distance. Inside some homes, people remain awake by necessity. A mother sits beside a child with fever, cooling cloths replaced regularly. A craftsman finishes a piece promised for morning delivery. A student repeats lines quietly, practicing words that will be spoken publicly tomorrow. Rome accommodates all of them. The city's design allows for this continuous motion without collapse. Wide roads near gates. Narrow streets where noise is absorbed. Stone that holds warmth and releases it slowly. Everything contributes. As you move through this quieter Rome, the sense of pressure fades. The city is no longer pushing forward. It is sustaining itself. By the time the eastern sky begins to pale again, much has already been done. Bread is nearly ready. Goods are in place. Streets are prepared. Morning will arrive not as a beginning, but as a reveal. Rome never truly sleeps. It simply hands the work from one set of hands to another. Where decisions quietly shape the city. While the streets continue their familiar rhythm, another Rome operates just beneath the surface, a Rome of decisions rather than movement. Near the Forum, inside shaded buildings that do not invite attention, clerks sit at long tables covered with scrolls. Their work is constant. Messages arrive, are unrolled, copied, summarized, and forwarded. Nothing here feels dramatic, yet everything here matters. A single sentence written now can alter how thousands of people move tomorrow. You watch a senator arrive without ceremony. He is not greeted with applause or silence, only recognition. He takes his place among others already seated. Discussion begins immediately. Not speeches, exchanges. Short arguments. Clarifications. Agreements reached through familiarity rather than persuasion. Outside, life continues uninterrupted. Vendors sell fruit. Messengers pass by carrying the results of conversations happening only a few steps away. Rome does not separate power from daily life. It embeds it. Decisions made here travel outward slowly. A tax adjustment affects merchants by afternoon. A road repair order reaches workers before sunset. An announcement scheduled for tomorrow is already shaping today's preparation. Scribes work carefully, dipping pens, recording outcomes with precision. Errors here ripple outward. Accuracy is not idealism, it is necessity. As you move away from these rooms, you realize that Rome's strength does not come from loud authority. It comes from quiet consistency. Power is exercised not by interruption, but by integration. The city does not stop to be governed. It is governed while moving. How orders travel without being seen. Decisions made in Rome do not rush into the streets. They move quietly, carried by people whose presence rarely draws attention. From the shaded administrative rooms, a clerk hands a rolled message to a messenger who has already memorized the route he will take. There is no seal to break in public, no announcement shouted across the forum. Information here moves hand to hand, voice to voice, trusted more for familiarity than formality. You follow the messenger as he leaves the building and blends into the crowd. He does not push. He does not hurry visibly. Speed in Rome comes from knowing when not to stop. He crosses the forum diagonally, avoiding clusters without breaking stride, passing close enough to overhear fragments of conversation without being noticed. At a small office near a temple, he delivers the message. Inside, another clerk reads it once, then again, then copies it onto a fresh scroll. The copy is passed to a third man, who nods and leaves immediately. The original is stored away. The instruction has already begun to spread. Elsewhere, a road repair crew pauses their work. Not because they are finished, but because their task has been redefined. Tools are rearranged. Stone blocks move to a different section. By midday, the street will look the same to passers-by, but its structure will be altered according to a decision made hours earlier in a room they will never see. A merchant adjusts prices slightly after a tax notice reaches him through a trusted contact. He does not complain aloud. He recalculates. Customers will feel the change without knowing its source. This is how Rome governs itself, not through interruption, but through adjustment. Orders rarely arrive as commands. They arrive as conditions. People adapt because adaptation keeps life smooth. As you move through the city, you realize how much of Rome's movement is guided by things unseen. Streets change function. Markets shift emphasis. Goods arrive at different hours. None of it feels sudden. All of it feels inevitable. By evening, the effects of the morning's decisions are everywhere. Not obvious. Not dramatic. But present in the way the city aligns itself without friction. Rome does not announce its will. It allows people to carry it forward. The system that turns decisions into reality. For every order written in Rome, dozens of hands are required to make it real. You arrive at a construction site just beyond the main roads, where workers adjust their tasks based on new instructions. No speeches are given. The foreman gathers his crew briefly, explains the change in a few sentences, and work resumes immediately in a different direction. Stonecutters reshape blocks that were meant for one wall and now belong to another. Carpenters alter supports without complaint. The system does not reward resistance. It rewards cooperation. Nearby, supply officers check inventories again. Materials are counted. Transport schedules updated. A wagon that would have left tomorrow departs tonight instead. Another is delayed. These changes ripple outward, affecting porters, drivers, and vendors who rely on predictable movement. In a different part of the city, a public announcement is prepared. Not everyone can read. The message will be spoken aloud tomorrow at a familiar corner near the forum. The words are chosen carefully, clear, firm, but not alarming. Rome prefers compliance through understanding. Meanwhile, enforcement remains subtle. City guards increase their presence near affected areas, not to intimidate, but to guide. Questions are answered. Confusion is corrected early. Order is maintained by visibility rather than force. You notice how quickly people adjust. A shopkeeper moves his stall to avoid construction. A teacher relocates his lesson to a shaded wall nearby. Life does not pause for administration. It bends around it. As the sun moves overhead, the city absorbs the change fully. What began as ink on parchment now exists as stone moved, routes shifted, habits altered. By late afternoon, the decision feels old. Normal. Integrated. This is Rome's greatest strength, not the ability to command, but the ability to convert intention into routine. Nothing here feels imposed. Everything feels aligned. Keeping order without drawing attention. Rome does not rely on fear to remain orderly. It relies on presence. As you move through the city, you begin to notice guards positioned at predictable intervals. They do not block streets. They do not shout commands. They stand where movement naturally passes, near crossroads, bridges, gates, and busy intersections. Their role is visibility, not interruption. A disagreement breaks out between two merchants over a delivery that arrived late. Voices rise briefly. Before it escalates, a guard steps closer, not touching either man, simply waiting. The argument shifts tone immediately. Words become measured. Solutions are proposed. The guard remains until resolution is reached, then steps away without comment. At the city gates, inspections proceed methodically. Goods are checked. Names recorded. Travelers asked simple questions. Nothing here feels hostile. The process is familiar. Most people prepare answers before being asked. Inside the city, patrols move continuously. Routes are known. Timings rarely change. Predictability builds trust. People know where help can be found if needed, and that knowledge prevents many problems from forming at all. At night, this presence increases subtly. Additional lamps are lit. Guards pause longer at corners. Sounds are noted. Patterns remembered. The city listens to itself. What becomes clear is that Rome does not chase disorder. It surrounds it quietly until it dissolves. Order here is not dramatic. It is sustained through consistency. Soldiers who belong to the city. Not all soldiers in Rome march toward distant borders. Many remain within the city itself, embedded into daily life. You encounter them near training grounds, adjusting equipment, practicing formations without urgency. Their movements are controlled, familiar. These men are not preparing for battle today. They are maintaining readiness. Citizens pass freely. Children watch briefly, then move on. The presence of armed men does not alarm. It reassures. Rome's military presence inside the city is not meant to dominate, but to stabilize. Some soldiers assist with logistics. Escorting valuable shipments. Protecting public buildings during major events. Standing guard during ceremonies. Their role adapts constantly. In conversations overheard nearby, soldiers are discussed as neighbors rather than enforcers. A baker mentions one who orders bread regularly. A vendor recalls a dispute settled fairly by another. Familiarity replaces fear. Training continues regardless of audience. Shields are lifted. Commands spoken softly. Corrections given immediately. Discipline is visible but restrained. This integration is intentional. Rome does not separate its protectors from its people. It weaves them together so that force never feels distant or abstract. The city understands that strength works best when it is predictable and close. Money, debt, and the quiet power that moves Rome. In Rome, money rarely announces itself, but it is everywhere. You notice it first not in gold, but in calculation. In the way a merchant pauses before agreeing to a price. In the way a banker listens longer than he speaks. In the way a debtor lowers his voice instinctively, even before terms are discussed. Near the forum, tables appear that look almost ordinary. No banners. No guards. Just wooden benches, scales, and small leather bags. These are the money changers and lenders, men who deal not in spectacle but in certainty. Coins are examined carefully. Weight matters more than shine. A familiar stamp is trusted more than a generous offer. You watch a transaction unfold slowly. A trader needs coin now to secure a shipment arriving at the port tomorrow. The banker listens, asks a few short questions, then calculates silently. Interest is not spoken aloud at first. It is implied, then confirmed with a nod. The agreement is not sealed with ceremony, but with memory. Everyone involved will remember the terms. Debt in Rome is not shameful. It is common. What matters is reputation. A man known to repay on time receives better terms. A man who delays finds doors closing quietly. No threats are needed. Access itself becomes leverage. Further from the forum, smaller lenders operate among neighborhoods. They know their clients personally. They understand seasonal work, delayed harvests, illness. Their terms are flexible, but not forgiving. Compassion exists, but structure always follows. Money moves through the city like water through stone channels. It changes direction when needed, slows where pressure builds, and flows fastest where trust already exists. No single authority controls it completely. That is its strength. At the same time, wealth is visible. Large homes stand beside narrow streets. Fine clothing passes worn sandals daily. Rome does not hide inequality. It integrates it. Rich and poor cross paths constantly, sharing fountains, streets, and markets. You see a wealthy citizen negotiating loudly over a trivial price while, nearby, a laborer counts coins carefully to ensure he can eat tonight. Both belong to the city. Both are necessary. What keeps Rome stable is not equality, but predictability. Everyone understands where they stand, what they can expect, and how far they can reach. Money reinforces this understanding. By late afternoon, transactions slow. Ledgers are closed. Coins are secured. Debts are recorded mentally and physically. Tomorrow's obligations already exist, even if tomorrow has not yet begun. Rome does not worship money. But it listens to it carefully. Living side by side without living the same life. In Rome, wealth and poverty do not exist in separate districts. They exist on the same streets, sometimes behind the same walls, often within the same view. This closeness is not accidental. It is how the city functions. You walk along a wide stone road where a large doma stands proudly, its entrance framed by columns and polished stone. Slaves move in and out carrying baskets, tools, messages. The doorway remains open, not as an invitation, but as a statement of presence. Inside, order governs every movement. Tasks are assigned. Time is structured. Silence is controlled. Only a few steps away, the street narrows sharply. Here, an insula rises several stories high, its outer walls worn smooth by weather and touch. Laundry hangs from upper windows. Cooking smoke drifts downward. Sounds overlap, voices, footsteps, arguments, laughter. Life is compressed here, layered vertically. You notice how people transition between these worlds without hesitation. A servant from the domus steps into the insula to deliver a message. A laborer leaves his crowded home to work in a wealthy household for the day. Boundaries exist, but they are permeable. Rome depends on this constant crossing. At shared fountains, people gather regardless of status. Water equalizes briefly. Containers are filled in silence or casual conversation. No one owns the source. Everyone depends on it. This shared necessity prevents complete separation. Markets reinforce this interaction. A wealthy buyer selects produce from the same stall as a craftsman. Prices differ slightly depending on quantity, not identity. Reputation matters more than rank here. A reliable seller earns trust from all. You observe a negotiation unfold between two men clearly from different social positions. The conversation is firm but respectful. Neither raises his voice. Each understands the rules. The exchange concludes not with dominance, but agreement. Rome does not attempt to eliminate inequality. It manages it. The city ensures that all classes remain visible to one another, bound together through daily function. Distance breeds resentment. Proximity breeds acceptance. In the afternoon, the contrasts become more visible. Wealthy homes retreat inward, curtains drawn to soften heat. In the insulae, windows remain open to catch air. Children play in shared spaces. Adults negotiate space and noise constantly. Yet even here, structure exists. Informal leaders emerge. Rules are enforced socially. Help is offered when needed, expected in return later. Survival depends on cooperation. As evening approaches, paths cross again. Servants return home. Laborers leave wealthy houses carrying wages earned. Goods move in both directions. Money flows outward. Labor flows inward. You realize that Rome's stability does not come from fairness, but from interdependence. Each group needs the other too much to disappear. The city does not promise equality. It promises continuity. And continuity is enough to keep millions moving together without collapse. The hands that keep Rome running. Rome is not held together only by citizens whose names appear in records. Much of the city's motion depends on people whose names are rarely written at all. You begin to notice them everywhere once you start looking closely. In wealthy households, slaves move continuously through rooms, corridors, and courtyards. They do not wander. Each movement has a destination. One carries water from the cistern. Another prepares food. Another listens quietly for instructions that may never be spoken aloud but are understood through routine. These are not unskilled hands. Many slaves are specialists. Some manage accounts, tracking expenses more carefully than their owners ever would. Others teach children, copying lessons again and again until knowledge settles permanently. Physicians, scribes, builders, expertise exists here, often hidden behind obligation. Outside, in workshops and construction sites, enslaved labor blends seamlessly with free labor. To an untrained eye, the difference is invisible. The work is the same. The discipline is the same. What differs is ownership, not ability. Rome does not rely on chaos to sustain this system. It relies on structure. You observe a foreman coordinating a group repairing a road. Instructions are short, clear, efficient. Everyone knows their role. The work proceeds without delay. Slaves and free laborers stand side by side, lifting stone, setting supports, smoothing surfaces. Productivity matters more than status here. In markets, enslaved sellers manage stalls independently, trusted to negotiate prices within agreed limits. Their knowledge of customers, supply, and demand makes them indispensable. A good manager increases profit. Owners recognize this quickly. At home, the organization becomes even more apparent. Large households operate like small administrations. Tasks are divided by time of day. One group prepares meals. Another cleans. Another maintains clothing and tools. Errors are corrected quietly. Efficiency is valued. Yet Rome understands that total pressure breaks systems. Rest periods exist. Food is distributed regularly. Medical care is provided when injury threatens productivity. Control here is calculated, not impulsive. Some slaves live with the possibility of change. Manumission, freedom granted after years of service, is not rare. It is incentive. Loyalty, skill, and reliability increase the chance of release. Former slaves often remain connected to their previous households, now as clients rather than property. This creates continuity. Knowledge stays within families. Trust transfers gradually. The city benefits from experience rather than discarding it. As you move through Rome, you realize how deeply this system is embedded. Roads are maintained. Goods are transported. Homes function smoothly. None of this would happen without these unseen hands. Rome does not deny their presence. It builds upon it. And while the system is unequal, it is not unthinking. It adapts, adjusts, and evolves to preserve stability above all else. The city moves forward on countless steps taken by people whose work rarely pauses, whose routines rarely change, and whose labor quietly supports everything you see. The quiet power inside Roman homes. Rome is often imagined through its public spaces, the forum, the arena, the roads that stretch outward from the city like veins. But the city's true balance is maintained elsewhere, inside the homes where decisions are made quietly, without witnesses. You step into a Roman household as the day is already in motion. The atrium is filled with soft light filtering through the open roof, illuminating a space that functions as both meeting place and command center. Movement here is constant but controlled. Servants pass through with purpose, each aware of what must be done before being told. At the center of this activity stands the woman of the house. She does not raise her voice. She does not issue commands dramatically. Instead, she observes, who is late, what is missing, where a task is falling behind. A brief look, a subtle gesture, and the flow adjusts immediately. Supplies are redirected. Priorities shift. The household reorganizes itself without interruption. In smaller homes across the city, the same pattern repeats in different form. Space is limited, resources fewer, but coordination is just as precise. Food is portioned carefully. Water is shared. Conflicts are addressed quickly before they grow. These homes cannot afford disorder, so order becomes instinctive. Much of Rome's stability begins here. Meals prepared on time ensure workers have strength. Clean clothing prevents illness. Children instructed early learn discipline long before the city demands it of them. None of this appears in public records, yet all of it shapes what happens outside. As the day progresses, household management continues alongside the city's rhythm. Accounts are reviewed on wax tablets. Repairs are scheduled. Visitors are anticipated. A delivery delayed in the market forces adjustments inside the home. Nothing is isolated. Everything connects. Women move between households as well, carrying information the city itself does not formally distribute. News of illness, of celebration, of shortage spreads through conversation at fountains and markets. Assistance is arranged quietly. Supplies are shared. Problems are solved before authorities ever become aware of them. This network has no headquarters and no hierarchy, yet it functions with remarkable efficiency. Rome relies on it more than it admits. When food grows scarce or disease threatens, these invisible systems respond first, absorbing shock before it reaches public space. By evening, the household settles, not because work is finished, but because it has been organized. What must wait until tomorrow is noted. What must continue through the night is assigned. Lamps are lit. Doors are secured. The city outside continues its motion, supported by the quiet order established within these walls. Rome's power is often displayed in stone and spectacle, but its endurance is built here, in rooms where authority is exercised without title and influence flows without recognition. A full day inside a Roman house. A Roman house does not wake all at once. It activates gradually, room by room, task by task, until the entire structure begins to move as a single system. Early in the day, light enters through the opening above the atrium, spreading across stone floors still cool from the night. The first movements are practical. Water is drawn. Ashes are cleared from small hearths. Doors are unbolted carefully, not thrown open, but adjusted to allow air and sound to pass in controlled measure. Servants begin their routes through the house, each following a pattern learned through repetition. One checks storage jars, confirming supplies before the city grows crowded. Another inspects tools used the previous day, repairing small faults before they become delays. Nothing here is dramatic. Everything is preventative. As the household gathers momentum, responsibilities expand outward. A visitor is expected later in the day, and preparations begin immediately. The dining area is checked. Seating is rearranged slightly to reflect status without exaggeration. Food planning shifts to accommodate the change. These adjustments happen quietly, woven into the normal rhythm rather than announced. Children are guided into learning early, before distractions grow louder. Lessons begin not with books, but with posture, speech, and attention. A correction here, a repetition there. Discipline forms gently but firmly. The city will demand these skills later. The home provides them first. By midday, the house interacts fully with the city beyond its walls. Deliveries arrive. Messages are exchanged. A delay at the market forces a change in timing. Someone is sent out to resolve it. The household adapts instantly, redistributing effort without complaint. Inside, work continues without pause. Cleaning happens alongside planning. Repairs alongside conversation. The house breathes in coordination with Rome itself. As the afternoon unfolds, heat alters behavior. Movement slows slightly. Shaded rooms are used more heavily. Curtains are adjusted. Water is offered more frequently. Comfort is managed carefully, not indulgently. Toward evening, activity gathers again. The visitor arrives as expected. Conversation unfolds in the atrium, measured and deliberate. Business is discussed indirectly, through shared meals and controlled exchange. Agreements are formed without signatures, built on familiarity rather than ceremony. As darkness approaches, the house transitions once more. Lamps are lit. Doors secured. Tasks that must continue through the night are assigned. What remains unfinished is recorded mentally and released until morning. When the household finally quiets, it does not collapse into rest. It settles into readiness. The systems remain intact. The structure holds. Tomorrow will bring new demands. The house will answer them. When fire tests the city. In a city built largely of wood, fabric, and oil, fire is never unexpected. It is anticipated, planned for, and controlled, as much as possible. You first notice it not by flame, but by movement. A sudden shift in direction. People stepping aside more quickly than before. Voices changing tone. Somewhere ahead, smoke begins to rise, thin at first, then more defined. The fire starts in a crowded insula, likely from a cooking hearth left unattended for only a moment too long. Within minutes, neighbors react. Buckets are brought out. Cloths are soaked. Doors are closed to limit air. Shouts travel upward as people warn those above. Rome responds immediately, not with panic, but with practiced coordination. Watchmen sound alarms using horns positioned throughout the district. Water carriers abandon normal routes and head directly toward the source. Fire brigades arrive quickly, organized into teams that know their roles without explanation. Some work to contain the flames. Others focus on evacuation, guiding families out through narrow streets, prioritizing children and the elderly. Property matters less than lives, but records and valuables are still carried out when possible. Stone buildings nearby become barriers. Walls are dampened deliberately. Fire breaks are created by pulling down vulnerable wooden structures before flames can reach them. The decision is harsh but understood. A controlled loss prevents a greater one. Within hours, the fire is contained. Smoke lingers. Damage is visible. But the city holds. What matters most is not that a fire occurred, but that it did not spread unchecked. Rome absorbs the shock and adjusts. By nightfall, cleanup begins. Plans are already forming for repairs. The city does not dwell on disaster. It reorganizes around it. Rebuilding without waiting. Rome does not wait for permission to repair itself. By the next morning, the damaged district is already active. Surveyors inspect walls. Builders measure foundations. Decisions are made quickly, not about whether to rebuild, but how. Temporary shelters appear first. Cloth stretched between posts. Shared spaces organized for displaced families. Food distribution is adjusted to account for increased need. No single announcement coordinates this effort. Familiar systems expand naturally. Construction crews arrive with materials sourced from nearby stores. Stone replaces wood where possible. Rooflines are adjusted. Lessons learned from previous fires shape new designs. Residents participate as well. Those whose homes survived help those whose did not. Tools are shared. Labor is exchanged. The community reinforces itself. Rome's strength lies not in preventing every crisis, but in minimizing how long a crisis lasts. By midday, the district resembles a worksite more than a disaster zone. Noise returns. Movement resumes. The city stitches itself back together. Preparing for festival days. Even as repairs continue, Rome prepares for celebration. Festival days are fixed points in the calendar. They do not move for convenience. The city adjusts around them. Streets near temples are cleared. Decorative cloth is hung between buildings. Vendors plan for increased demand. Food quantities are recalculated. Musicians rehearse openly, their melodies drifting through the streets. Priests coordinate schedules carefully. Offerings must be prepared. Processions planned. Timing matters. A delayed ritual affects everything that follows. Households contribute as well. Special meals are planned. Clothing is repaired or borrowed. Children rehearse songs and gestures they have practiced since early childhood. Rome understands that festivals are not interruptions. They are reinforcements. Shared joy strengthens cohesion just as much as shared labor. When the city dresses for the gods. Festival days in Rome begin long before the first procession appears in the streets. Preparation is as important as the celebration itself, and the city treats it with the same discipline it applies to work and governance. At dawn, activity spreads outward from the temples. Priests arrive early, inspecting altars, adjusting offerings, and confirming the sequence of rituals that will shape the entire day. Nothing is improvised. Each gesture has been performed countless times before, refined through repetition rather than inspiration. Across the city, streets near sacred routes change their appearance. Decorative cloth is hung between buildings, carefully measured so it does not obstruct movement. Garlands are placed at doorways. Shopkeepers rearrange displays, anticipating heavier crowds and longer hours. The scent of incense begins to drift outward, blending with the smells of food and stone warmed by the sun. Households participate fully. Clothing reserved for special occasions is brought out and checked. Repairs are made quickly. Children are instructed carefully, reminded how to behave during rituals, when to remain silent, and when to respond. These lessons are not optional. Participation is expected. Vendors prepare with equal care. Food quantities increase. Prices are calculated in advance to avoid disputes during the celebration. Wine is diluted correctly. Nothing must distract from the flow of the day. As the morning advances, movement toward the temples increases steadily. People do not rush. They arrive early, taking their places with familiarity. This is not novelty. It is renewal. Rome does not decorate itself to impress. It prepares to reaffirm its order, its continuity, and its relationship with forces it believes guide the city's fortune. The procession that moves the city as one. When the procession begins, it does not announce itself with noise. It emerges gradually, like a tide filling familiar channels. Musicians lead the way, their instruments setting a steady pace rather than commanding attention. Drums and flutes blend into a rhythm designed to guide movement, not overwhelm it. The sound carries forward, reaching streets ahead of the procession, preparing people to make space. Priests follow, walking deliberately, carrying sacred objects that represent continuity rather than spectacle. Their expressions remain focused. The ritual matters more than the audience. Citizens line the route, standing shoulder to shoulder. Differences in status soften here. Everyone watches from the same ground, bound by shared attention. Conversations quiet naturally as the procession passes. Respect does not need enforcement. Offerings are presented at designated points along the route. Some are small and personal. Others represent entire neighborhoods or guilds. Each is acknowledged, recorded, and incorporated into the ceremony. Children watch closely, absorbing movements and symbols they will one day repeat. Elders observe with familiarity, noting nothing has changed, and finding comfort in that fact. The procession does not stop the city. It moves through it, weaving ritual into daily structure. Markets remain open. Water is carried. Work continues at the edges. Rome does not pause for worship. It integrates it. By midday, the procession reaches its final destination. Prayers are spoken aloud, their words carried across the gathered crowd. Responses come not as shouts, but as unified silence followed by measured acknowledgement. The ritual concludes without dramatic flourish. The gods have been honored. The city has fulfilled its obligation. What follows is not emptiness, but release. The procession that moves the city as one. When the procession begins, it does not announce itself with noise. It emerges gradually, like a tide filling familiar channels. Musicians lead the way, their instruments setting a steady pace rather than commanding attention. Drums and flutes blend into a rhythm designed to guide movement, not overwhelm it. The sound carries forward, reaching streets ahead of the procession, preparing people to make space. Priests follow, walking deliberately, carrying sacred objects that represent continuity rather than spectacle. Their expressions remain focused. The ritual matters more than the audience. Citizens line the route, standing shoulder to shoulder. Differences in status soften here. Everyone watches from the same ground, bound by shared attention. Conversations quiet naturally as the procession passes. Respect does not need enforcement. Offerings are presented at designated points along the route. Some are small and personal. Others represent entire neighborhoods or guilds. Each is acknowledged, recorded, and incorporated into the ceremony. Children watch closely, absorbing movements and symbols they will one day repeat. Elders observe with familiarity, noting nothing has changed, and finding comfort in that fact. The procession does not stop the city. It moves through it, weaving ritual into daily structure. Markets remain open. Water is carried. Work continues at the edges. Rome does not pause for worship. It integrates it. By midday, the procession reaches its final destination. Prayers are spoken aloud, their words carried across the gathered crowd. Responses come not as shouts, but as unified silence followed by measured acknowledgement. The ritual concludes without dramatic flourish. The gods have been honored. The city has fulfilled its obligation. What follows is not emptiness, but release. Games beyond the arena. Not every Roman celebration leads to the arena. On many festival days, the city chooses variety over spectacle, spreading entertainment across streets, courtyards, and public squares. As the afternoon unfolds, temporary stages appear in open spaces. They are simple platforms, assembled quickly, sturdy enough for movement but designed to disappear by nightfall. Actors rehearse quietly, adjusting masks and costumes that signal familiar characters rather than surprise. The audience does not need explanation. Recognition is enough. Crowds gather loosely. People drift in and out without pressure to stay. A comedic scene draws laughter from one side of the square while, a short distance away, a storyteller recounts an old legend with measured pacing. Each performance claims attention without demanding it. Athletic contests emerge in wider streets and training yards. Running, wrestling, throwing, controlled demonstrations rather than fierce competition. Participants test skill and endurance, watched by neighbors and strangers alike. Victory earns applause, not dominance. The emphasis remains on participation. Merchants adapt quickly. Food stalls reposition to serve new clusters of people. Drinks circulate more freely. Prices remain stable. Festivals are not an excuse for exploitation, they are opportunities for volume. Children move freely between performances, imitating gestures they see, repeating lines they overhear. Elders observe from shaded edges, recognizing patterns that have remained unchanged for generations. Rome spreads its energy deliberately. By avoiding a single focal point, it prevents congestion and conflict. Entertainment becomes communal rather than overwhelming. As the sun lowers, performers conclude naturally. There are no encores demanded, no schedules enforced. The city knows when enough has been given. The games dissolve back into daily structure, leaving behind nothing but memory and familiarity. Feeding the city during celebration. A festival increases more than noise and movement. It increases hunger. Throughout the city, kitchens work at full capacity. Large pots simmer over open fires. Bread ovens run continuously, their heat managed carefully to avoid waste. Slaves and free workers move in practiced rhythm, carrying trays, refilling containers, adjusting quantities as crowds shift. Public distribution points open in designated areas. These are not acts of charity, but of management. Keeping people fed prevents unrest and ensures the celebration remains calm. Portions are simple but sufficient. No one lingers long enough to create congestion. Private households prepare more generously than usual. Meals stretch longer. Guests are welcomed without formal invitation. Leftovers are shared deliberately, passed to neighbors or distributed quietly to those in need. Wine flows steadily but remains controlled. Dilution is enforced by habit rather than rule. Intoxication is frowned upon not because it is forbidden, but because it disrupts order. Markets adjust hours, staying open longer into the evening. Vendors rotate shifts to avoid exhaustion. Supply chains flex smoothly, redirecting goods from storage to streets without delay. You notice how efficiently this system responds to increased demand. No panic. No shortage. The city has done this before. Food becomes the quiet backbone of celebration, sustaining energy without drawing attention to itself. Rome understands that enjoyment requires preparation just as much as discipline. Evening after celebration. As daylight fades, the city does not abruptly change. It eases. Music softens first. Instruments lower in volume, then fall silent altogether. Performers pack their tools efficiently, accustomed to leaving no trace behind. Streets begin to clear gradually, not emptied but thinned. Families start their return journeys, moving together, recounting moments from the day. Children carry small tokens, a piece of bread, a ribbon, a memory, evidence of participation rather than possession. City workers emerge quietly. Sweeping begins. Decorations are loosened and removed. Leftover food is redistributed. Nothing remains idle for long. The air cools. Lamps are lit earlier than usual, casting warm light over stone streets still holding the day's warmth. Conversations slow. Fatigue appears not as collapse, but as gentler movement. Near temples, final rituals conclude. Offerings are secured. Sacred spaces are closed respectfully. The divine portion of the day ends without ceremony. Rome settles back into itself, enriched but unchanged. Celebration has reinforced structure rather than disrupted it. The city is ready to resume full rhythm by morning. And it will. Roads that never truly rest. Rome's streets are not only paths within the city. They are extensions of roads that reach far beyond the walls, carrying people, goods, and information into and out of the heart of the empire. Near the gates, activity never fully slows. Carts arrive from surrounding countryside loaded with grain, vegetables, stone, and timber. Drivers know where to stop without being told. Inspections are brief, focused on order rather than suspicion. Goods that meet expectation pass through quickly. Inside the walls, these arrivals disperse. Loads are divided and redirected to markets, storehouses, and workshops. Nothing lingers at the gate longer than necessary. Rome understands congestion as a threat to efficiency. Travelers arrive with different purposes. Some bring trade. Others bring petitions. A few arrive simply to see the city that defines the world they know. Each is absorbed smoothly, guided by signage, habit, and the quiet instruction of guards and clerks. As you move along these roads, you feel how Rome extends itself outward, drawing strength from connection rather than isolation. And it will. Merchants from distant shores. Within the markets, foreign accents mix easily with local voices. Traders from distant provinces set up alongside Roman merchants, their goods distinct but welcomed. Spices, fabrics, metals, and rare materials appear briefly, then disperse into the city's economy. Negotiations unfold slowly. Trust is built through repetition rather than charm. A merchant who returns regularly earns familiarity. Rome does not treat foreign trade as novelty. It treats it as infrastructure. Customs are recorded. Standards enforced. Exchange remains predictable. The city grows richer not through surprise, but through reliability. A city of many voices, one rhythm. Rome does not sound the same everywhere, and it never has. As you move through the city, you begin to notice how many voices shape its daily rhythm. Latin dominates public space, but beneath it, woven quietly into the air, are dozens of other tongues, Greek spoken with ease, Punic remembered by traders from the coast, rougher dialects carried in from distant provinces. No one stops to ask where a person comes from. Presence is enough. If you stand here, if you trade here, if you work here, you belong, at least for now. Rome measures belonging through participation, not origin. In the markets, foreign merchants set up stalls beside local sellers. Their goods differ, their accents stand out, but the rules remain the same. Weights are checked. Prices negotiated. Trust earned slowly through consistency. A trader who returns year after year becomes familiar, regardless of where he began. Along certain streets, you notice clusters forming naturally. Bakers from one region settle near one another. Sailors frequent the same taverns. Craftsmen trained in similar traditions exchange techniques without ceremony. These groupings are not enforced. They grow organically, shaped by comfort and habit. Children grow up hearing multiple languages daily. They imitate sounds without effort, switching tones instinctively depending on who they address. This flexibility becomes second nature. Rome teaches adaptability before theory. Temples reflect this diversity openly. Foreign gods are welcomed alongside Roman ones, their shrines maintained quietly, respected as long as they do not disrupt order. The city does not demand uniform belief, only compatible behavior. What holds all of this together is not sameness, but rhythm. Everyone learns when to move, when to wait, when to speak, and when to listen. These shared timings matter more than shared origins. Rome does not erase difference. It aligns it. Where the city stores its tomorrow. Beyond the noise of markets and streets, Rome maintains vast spaces designed not for people, but for patience. Near the river and along major roads, warehouses stand broad and solid, their walls thick, their entrances guarded not by soldiers, but by procedure. These buildings do not impress visitors. They reassure administrators. Inside, the air is cool and dry. Grain is stacked carefully, rotated according to schedule. Amphorae of oil and wine are arranged by origin and age. Tools and materials are stored not where space allows, but where retrieval will be fastest when needed. Clerks move quietly between rows, updating records on wax tablets and parchment. They do not rush. Accuracy matters more than speed here. A miscount today becomes hunger weeks later. Workers unload carts steadily, following routines learned through repetition. Nothing is dropped carelessly. Spills are noted. Damage is assessed immediately. Loss is expected in small amounts, unacceptable in large ones. These warehouses do not exist for crisis alone. They smooth daily life. When harvests are good, excess is stored. When harvests fail, reserves are released without announcement. The city absorbs fluctuations silently. Very few citizens ever step inside these buildings. Fewer still understand how critical they are. Yet Rome's survival depends on them more than on any monument. The city does not rely on hope. It relies on preparation. The river that never negotiates. The Tiber does not adjust itself to Rome. Rome adjusts itself to the Tiber. From early morning onward, boats move steadily along the river, arriving and departing according to patterns memorized rather than written. Pilots know the currents intimately. Dockworkers anticipate shifts in water level without instruction. Cargo is transferred efficiently. Ropes are handled carefully. Loads are balanced before being lifted. Every motion has been repeated countless times before. Goods arriving by river feed the city immediately. Grain is directed to mills. Stone to construction sites. Timber to workshops. Delays ripple outward quickly, so none are tolerated. Along the embankments, officials observe without interfering unless necessary. Their role is oversight, not direction. The system knows itself. The river connects Rome to places unseen, farms upriver, ports beyond the horizon, provinces whose names most citizens will never visit. Yet their labor arrives here daily, carried by water. At night, movement continues more quietly. Torches guide late arrivals. Sounds soften. The river flows unchanged. Rome depends on this consistency absolutely. The river does not care. And that reliability is precisely why it works. How news travels faster than feet. Rome does not rely on written notices alone. Its fastest network is spoken. At fountains, baths, workshops, and taverns, information moves freely. A ship delayed. A price change expected. A public event scheduled. Accuracy matters, because reputation follows words closely. Those who speak carelessly find themselves ignored. Those who speak reliably are sought out. Trust determines speed. You notice how often conversations pause to exchange updates. Not gossip, but practical knowledge. Who is hiring? Which street is blocked? Where supplies are arriving? This network corrects itself constantly. Errors are challenged immediately. Information is refined through repetition. Rome's formal messengers carry authority. Its informal voices carry immediacy. Together, they keep the city synchronized without stopping it. Roads that carry the empire. Rome does not end at its walls. In many ways, it barely begins there. As you approach the city gates, you realize that the streets inside Rome are only the final stretch of a far greater network. Roads extend outward in every direction, laid with precision, maintained with care, and used without pause. These roads are not decorative achievements. They are instruments of continuity. Merchants arrive at dawn, their carts bearing marks of distant lands. The wheels follow grooves worn into stone by generations before them. No guide is needed. The road itself teaches where to go. Milestones mark distance, not for pride, but for planning. Time is calculated by familiarity rather than measurement. Soldiers travel these same roads, though not always in formation. Some move in small groups, others alone, carrying messages rather than weapons. Their presence reassures more than it intimidates. The roads belong to everyone who understands their rules. Along the way, inns and rest stations appear at regular intervals. These are not places of luxury. They exist to keep movement steady. Water, food, shelter, nothing more than what is required to continue. Rome does not encourage lingering. It encourages flow. You imagine a product beginning its journey far from the city. Grain harvested under a different sky. Oil pressed in a quieter land. Wine sealed into amphorae and marked carefully. Each item begins far away, yet travels a path so reliable that its arrival is expected long before it appears. These roads also carry ideas. Customs change subtly as they move. Accents soften. Practices adapt. What arrives in Rome is never entirely foreign anymore. The road reshapes it along the way. Maintenance never stops. Crews repair stone quietly. Damaged sections are replaced without announcement. A broken road threatens everything connected to it, so Rome does not allow neglect. Standing near a gate, watching traffic enter and leave, you feel how the empire breathes. Inward and outward. Constant. Balanced. Rome's power does not come from standing still at the center. It comes from staying connected to everything beyond it. From distant fields to Roman tables. Nothing appears suddenly in Rome. Everything arrives. You follow the path of a single sack of grain as it moves toward the city. It begins months earlier in open fields far beyond the horizon. Harvested carefully, stored temporarily, then loaded onto carts or boats. It travels slowly but steadily toward its destination. At each stage, hands change, but purpose remains. Farmers sell to traders. Traders transfer to transporters. Transporters deliver to storage. Storage releases to bakers. Bakers transform grain into bread that feeds thousands who will never know where it came from. This system does not rely on urgency. It relies on timing. Warehouses release supplies according to plan, not demand. Excess is saved. Shortage is compensated. The city smooths out uncertainty long before citizens feel it. Wine follows a similar journey. Pressed in distant vineyards, sealed and marked, it travels by road and river, resting in cool storage until needed. Oil moves carefully, protected from heat and contamination. Each product obeys its own rhythm. Markets receive these goods quietly. No announcement accompanies arrival. Merchants know when to expect deliveries. Prices adjust gradually. Sudden shifts are avoided. Stability matters more than profit. Inside homes, these distant journeys become daily routine. Bread broken at a table carries months of planning. Oil poured into a lamp represents labor from unseen places. Even waste is considered, reused, or repurposed carefully. You realize that Rome eats the empire every day. Not greedily, not wastefully, but systematically. In return, the empire exists to supply the city. This exchange creates balance. Provinces are connected rather than drained. Their success becomes Rome's stability. When shortages threaten, the city responds early. Reserves are released. Routes are redirected. No drama is needed. Hunger is managed quietly, because hunger left unmanaged becomes unrest. Strangers who become Romans. In Rome, arrival is rarely dramatic. People enter the city quietly, often carrying little more than tools, experience, and expectation. Some come by choice, others by necessity, but all are drawn by the same promise, that here, participation matters more than origin. You notice newcomers first by hesitation. A pause at intersections. A glance toward familiar landmarks learned too recently. Yet Rome is designed to absorb this uncertainty. Streets guide movement. Markets invite interaction. Work reveals itself quickly to those willing to take it. A craftsman from a distant province begins by assisting in a workshop, repeating motions he already knows under slightly different rules. His accent draws brief attention, then fades into routine. Reliability matters more than speech. Within weeks, his presence is expected. Within months, relied upon. Merchants follow a similar path. They return again and again, learning the rhythms of trade, the expectations of buyers, the patience required for trust. Familiarity builds slowly. A stall gains regular customers. A name begins to circulate. What was once foreign becomes simply known. Rome does not demand immediate assimilation. It allows habits to align over time. People adjust clothing, timing, tone. They learn when to speak directly and when to wait. This learning is constant, informal, and effective. Citizenship, when it comes, arrives as recognition rather than transformation. It marks what has already happened, that someone has become part of the city's functioning. Former outsiders often maintain ties to their origins, bringing new practices that Rome adapts rather than resists. Neighborhoods change gradually. Foods diversify. Skills expand. Beliefs coexist. The city does not dilute itself by absorbing others. It refines itself. What makes this possible is Rome's clarity about expectations. The rules are visible. Participation is rewarded. Disruption is corrected early. There is space to become Roman without erasing what came before. By the time a stranger feels at home, the city has already accepted them. No ceremony marks the moment. It simply becomes true. Rome is not a place you arrive at. It is a place you grow into. Crowds, pressure, and control. A city of this size does not remain calm by accident. Rome is crowded, loud, and constantly in motion, yet it rarely collapses into chaos. The reason lies in how pressure is managed long before it becomes visible. You experience this first in how crowds move. Streets widen near busy intersections. Bottlenecks are anticipated. Guards position themselves where tension is most likely, not to intervene aggressively, but to guide flow. Their presence adjusts behavior subtly. Markets are arranged to prevent congestion. Vendors know where they can stand and when they must move. Customers learn these patterns instinctively. When a space grows too dense, movement redistributes naturally. Public announcements are timed carefully. News that might provoke anxiety is delivered early, accompanied by explanation. Silence is avoided. Confusion is more dangerous than bad news. Food distribution plays a central role in maintaining calm. When supplies tighten, portions adjust gradually. Reserves are released quietly. No sudden absence signals danger. People feel change without fearing it. Entertainment is also strategic. Games, festivals, performances, these are not distractions, but releases. They redirect energy, create shared focus, and reinforce belonging. A city that celebrates together argues less destructively. Rome understands that control does not require force. It requires predictability. When people know what to expect, they cooperate willingly. When they trust systems, they endure discomfort patiently. At times, pressure rises anyway. A delayed shipment. A rumor of illness. A local dispute. The city responds quickly, not loudly. Officials appear. Explanations circulate. Small corrections prevent large reactions. You sense how much attention goes into preventing moments that never happen. Calm is maintained not through suppression, but through anticipation. Rome does not eliminate tension. It manages it continuously. And in doing so, it keeps millions moving together without breaking. When illness comes, and life continues. No city escapes illness, and Rome is no exception. What defines it is not the absence of sickness, but how the city responds when health becomes fragile. You begin to notice the signs subtly. A household keeps its doors closed longer than usual. A market stall opens late. A bathhouse grows quieter. No alarms are sounded. No panic spreads. Rome understands that fear travels faster than disease. Physicians move through the city steadily, carrying small kits filled with herbs, oils, and tools refined through long practice. Their knowledge is a blend of observation, tradition, and experience passed from teacher to student. Some treatments work. Others comfort. Both are valued. Homes adjust routines immediately. Windows open more frequently. Water is boiled longer. Shared cups are avoided. These habits are not announced as rules. They are learned responses, absorbed through memory rather than decree. Public spaces adapt as well. Bath schedules change. Crowds thin slightly. Gatherings shorten. The city does not stop breathing, it slows its breath. Care extends beyond medicine. Neighbors check on one another quietly. Food is delivered without expectation of return. Children are kept close. Elders are visited carefully. Support flows sideways, not downward. Rome does not deny vulnerability. It builds around it. When illness passes, as it often does, routines return gradually. The city remembers what it learned. Adjustments remain long after danger fades. Life continues not because Rome ignores risk, but because it refuses to surrender to it. Time, memory, and the weight of living. As years pass, Rome changes slowly enough that its inhabitants rarely notice. Stones are replaced. Faces age. Customs adjust. Memory accumulates. You walk through a familiar street and realize how many lives have moved through it before you. Footsteps overlap invisibly. Voices linger in absence. The city holds memory without recording it. Elders sit in shaded places, observing without urgency. They speak less, but when they do, their words carry the weight of comparison. They remember fires, festivals, shortages, and recoveries. What feels uncertain now has happened before in another form. Children grow into roles they once rehearsed as games. Craftsmen train apprentices who will one day replace them. Stories are repeated, not for accuracy, but for continuity. Rome does not chase permanence. It accepts replacement as survival. Buildings weather and are repaired. Relationships shift and are renewed. Nothing is frozen, yet nothing is lost entirely. The city exists as a moving archive. What you sense most strongly is endurance, not dramatic, not heroic, but patient. Rome lasts because it allows time to pass through it rather than resisting it. The city does not fear aging. It incorporates it. When the city finally rests, night settles over Rome gently, not as an ending, but as a pause. Lamps glow behind doorways. Streets empty gradually, never all at once. The last vendors close their stalls. Guards take positions they know by heart. Bakers begin work again quietly, preparing for a morning that feels distant but inevitable. Inside homes, conversations fade. The city exhales. Sounds soften into background rhythm, footsteps, distant water, the occasional call carried through darkness. You feel how Rome holds itself together even in rest. Systems remain alert. Paths remain clear. Nothing truly sleeps, yet nothing demands attention. Above it all, the sky remains unchanged. Stars look down on a city that has risen, adapted, and endured beneath them. Rome does not announce its importance. It demonstrates it through continuity. As the night deepens, the city becomes a single, slow breath, steady, familiar, unbroken. And as you rest, Rome remains.